per day. That's a whole lot of improvement. In fact, during Christmas time that we're moving towards minimum of 20 hours, we achieved that in so many local government areas. Where on the average, we're able to do 18 to 20 hours every day.
When you sit at the Federal Executive Council meeting, do you bring up this matter as regards ways to, or avenues to work on the electricity laws in the country?
I'm not a member of the Federal Executive Council. I'm only a member of the National Economic Council.
Okay, but that will also affect the national economy, which we're talking about.
It will, but you know, as a leader, it's not easy to just believe that everything can be done on day one. I'm also one person who believes we are still a developing economy. We must have certain challenges. We are not yet a developed economy. Challenges in terms of systems and structures must always be there. But the question is, do we continue like this? I think, let me still bring it back home and leave the federal, because I can only talk at the areas I have authority. What I do in my own case is, let's just start somewhere. Let's start something. And starting that something, you know, you will be criticized. People will say a whole lot. But you know where you're going to. Very soon people will join you because they see where you're going to. Take, for example, you were talking about structures and systems. I look at the civil service. I had to make some changes in terms of manpower. And I had to redefine that, look, this is what I want and this is where I'm going to. So today, we are taking a whole lot of that, and I'm giving them a target that by this point in time, I want to see a fully automated civil service system. If not for any other thing, in terms of personnel. I'm not sacking anybody, but you know, I don't even intend to. I don't want to sack anybody. I don't even intend to.
Yes,
so what I'm trying to do is try to make those that you have be much more productive.
Excellency, talking about personnel, let's look at the issue of education here. You have free education in the primary schools here in Akwa Ibom State. Recently, some teachers were recruited as well. Have they started work?
Well, some teachers were recruited. They've not started work. Let me take in a different perspective. I got in. For you to be a permanent secretary, in the past 1 year, you must be personally interviewed by me. Because permanent secretary is a very serious business. You know, in Nigeria, it's the only place somebody just believes you can wake up from your bed and assume leadership. It doesn't work that way. You must prepare yourself to be a leader. You don't just wake up and just assume. Leadership is a very serious business. So to be a permanent secretary, you must be interviewed by the chief executive. So the teachers that you're talking, some of them that were recruited, a rat and a lizard might be running towards the same direction. They might be going towards the same direction, but they run two different races. Same thing with human beings. Different approaches, same goal. To me, I believe where I must lay a critical foundation for my people is that, basic education level. So I need to understand the process of recruiting those teachers. So I have to, review the entire process to achieve what I see. Because you see, what you see could be different from what I'm seeing. But the premium I pay on those basic education, which is why I'm continuing on free and compulsory education. It might gladden you to know that even the WAEC fees, I pay 100% for them to write WAEC. But at the same time, I need to make sure, because I'm sorry to say so, there are some schools, during the period of campaign, you go to certain schools, probably during the recess time, you walk around classes. How do you assess? When you walk around classes, some teachers, when they teach, they forget to clean up what they were teaching. So at times you see what is written on the board. It could help you shape what you want to do and how you want to, carry out your reviews. So back to the teachers that you're talking about, I want to go back through the process. Let's go back through the process and make sure, at the very worst, we get the best out of what we have that can teach these people. I think that's a simple truth.
Let me talk a little bit about budgeting. Your 2016 budget, correct me if I'm wrong, 426 billion naira, based on a benchmark of 30 barrels per day, $30 which is the production rate of 2 million barrels per day.
Correct.
But now, I think the last time when the minister announced that it's gone down to 1.4 million barrels per day, that definitely affects the current country's revenue. And that will affect state revenue as well. How are you getting the funding to go about all of these projects?
You know, when we started this program, I clearly said two things. That there's a difference between cash and money. And I must also be very sincere. There's no magic that you can perform 100% on your budget this year. Because there are some derailments here and there. But the question there is, there should be also certain financial engineering that could enable you access some kind of, instrument in the market that can help you do basic things. One thing about budgeting, and also when you look at the budget like that, the question is, as a state government, you see, you can't budget that kind of money and put everything into overheads. If you see, more than 70% of that budget will go into capital expenditure. And capital expenditure, to somebody like me, I believe I should invest on things that will have economic value, that will create value in a short period of time. Take, for example, out of that budget, I should be able to develop, I've been talking about, logistic parks and certain areas. It might not necessarily pay off in year one, but I'm investing towards the future. So I need to put money where I know within a short period of time, there could be a payback period. I put money in a coconut refining plant. Maximum, I'll spend like $53 million. But I can bet you that in year 5 of that coconut refinery plant, I would have realized about $87 million on a very conservative estimate. So you could see that where, if you have that, it is very easy where you can even drop, say, 10 to 20%. And then you can talk to, the market, the financial market. I say, look, I have this project. My contribution is 20%. I can raise debt. I can do equipment financing. There are various ways of financing those kind of projects, because once you have a very good feasibility study and people can see your projections that are conservative enough and they are realistic, that's another thing. Those projections must be realistic. You must take through and follow through. Once people see that, so I can actually, at the same time, achieve that my budget. But meanwhile, I may now spend more than 20 to 30% of what I needed on ground. But I would have gotten people who will, run with me on that.
What role are you giving the private sector in all of these projects?
Every single project that we do, we adopt. Why do you think people always say private sector, private sector? Let's look at that, because you see, else would seem as if it's just a name. People keep copying private sector anywhere you go to, even in terms of governance. Wherever people are drawing example, they are talking about corporate governance, private sector approach, because it's result-oriented approach. So I believe once whatsoever I do borders on that result-oriented approach, there must be measurement. You understand? There must be a reward principle. There must be measurement. There must be some kind of motivation in whatever you're doing, which is why I was telling you that the people who are in the cocoa farm, the youths, will definitely work, and they'll be happy to work because they can also compete with their guys elsewhere. So once there's that kind of measurement, you're already adopting that private sector approach, which is also why I told you those technical committees was actually to inject that approach into whatsoever that we do. So that's the place of private sector here. And also a private sector person will also think of what's, I talked about appropriate pricing. And sometime, I don't think it was your station that interviewed me, I said some of us are not professional politicians. They were professional in politics. Two different things. A professional politician, immediately he finishes and he gets sworn in, start thinking of the next election. Professional in politics, from the day you're sworn in, you start thinking of the present and the next generation.
Are you saying you haven't started thinking of 2019?
I'm a professional in politics, so I serve my generation. And once you serve your generation and serve well, I think people won't have choice but really to support you, because You see, Nigerians are tired of mediocrity.
You know, listening to you, I see so much wealth, immense wealth and money in Akwa Ibom State, some yet to be tapped. How have you been coping, knowing full well that we now live in times where salaries are being owed in many states in the country? How are you owing?
I'm not owing. To start with, I've paid all salaries to date. It's challenging because it goes back to the same thing I'm saying. Over the period, every successive government will be talking about diversification. I just pray what is happening in this country today, we would be able to learn a lesson as a country. We've never learned a lesson. What we are going through today had happened before. You see, this thing is a normal curve. It goes, it will come down, it will come back to this thing some years to come. If you check through, in time past, why did we have, a structural adjustment program, all kinds of things in the past? So many of these things had come in different forms before. But have we learned as a country? Now, you could see the practical form of diversification I'm talking about. Since I've started this discussion, I've not discussed anything about the price of crude oil because I know that won't take me anywhere any longer. The statutory allocation I'm running the state today is less than 20% of what we used to get when the oil price was over $100. Less than 20% I'm getting today as a state. But the cost structure I inherited was a cost structure that was set up as at the time, the oil price was over $100. And you can't manage that, overnight. So you have to look at, in the next few years, assuming things go back, I say it's a normal curve. We get back to the peak. It's today you must start laying the foundation for that economic future. So that when it gets to the peak, you can easily redeploy those resources to strengthen what you're doing today. So that when it comes back to where we are today, people wouldn't be caught napping the way we are in today. Because, I don't know, a country like ours, at times you get people, they ask you, chicken lap and so on, being imported from neighboring. Why should we? Poultry, what does it take? Let me also mention that so that you don't let me forget it. In the entire of this South Side, we don't have a single hatchery. We get to the West for us to have a day-old chick. Within my first year in office, I promised my people on May 29, I will bring out a day-old chick from my hatchery. So I wouldn't mind if you guys join me on Sunday after service. Let's bring out the first day-old chick out of my hatchery from Akwa Ibom so that, because these are the things that propel us to actually develop a blueprint that can see us totally and fully diversify the economy in a few years to come. So on Sunday, I'll bring out the day-old chick from my hatchery, and I'm looking forward to actually sustaining it and making it run independent of government. These are real practical terms of diversification.
All right, well, we'll take a moment and draw a breath and then eventually involve you when we return. Do join us again.